All right, we are live. I know it's been a while. This is Rediscovering Black Conservatism. I am here with the president of the Montclair Republicans Club, Montclair, New Jersey Republicans Club in New Jersey. John, how you feeling?
Good. I'm feeling good, Dave. And
Yeah,
it doesn't surprise me. It gets hard to get those words out because nobody thinks that there is a Republican club or a Republican in Montclair.
yes. But it's a lot of things happening in the world. And we're gonna unpack them from the Whole Foods CEO to the Capitol Hill invasion. But we're going to get start with the most popular and the most relevant, which is the Capitol Hill invasion. As it stands right now, the last I heard, four people died. I
I think
think
it's
one,
five now.
five, okay, including a police officer.
Yes.
And there's discussion. I know 82 people were arrested, and they are discussing federal charges, potentially murder charges for some of those people.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get some of your thoughts on the Capitol Hill, you know, uh, drama.
Yeah. I like anybody. I was appalled by
Yeah,
what happened at the Capitol. I don't think there's a single citizen looking at that when you see the Capitol breached in the middle of a democratic process, it is a very disturbing event. Um, so having said that, though, I think one needs to double back, and there's absolutely no excuse whatsoever for what happened, and that type of behavior. It is thuggish. We can't accept mob rule, but I think we have to step back for a second, um, and look at the events that are leading up to this and the why. A big question that I have is obviously the events of the last couple of months and the doubts that people have had about the veracity of the election, of the legitimacy of the election. I want to know it, why. Why do 39% of the electorate reject the results of this election? 39%, not a small number. Um, so when you're dealing with that, um, there's this uptick of rage is
hmm
it's not excusable, but it's also you see where it is coming from, and there are a lot of questions about the fact that there's been so much percolation, so much over the past 4 years, different attacks on the administration and so on. Is all I'll say. That I think that you need to take a step back. There's an awful lot of people, I think, exploiting this moment,
hmm
no question, exploiting the moment, creating theater out of it. And so I think we need to take a step back, and take a breath, and have some respect for those who certainly for anybody that was defending the Capitol, who died or were injured. Everybody that was involved needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But in a forum like this, I think to just take a breath, a breather, step back, and think, where did we get to this point? Considering the fact, Dave, that for the past 4 years and beyond, gatherings of Trump supporters have been universally peaceful until today. So,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So everybody who's watching, I am with the president of Montclair, New Jersey Montclair Republican Club, and we're talking about the Capitol Hill invasion. I'm going to give my 2 cents. First and foremost, I unequivocally condemn the attacks. Um, Point blank, that's not who we are, and that's not who we should aspire to be as Republicans. Point blank, for me, there's no justification for it. Um, there's no cause and effect relationship for it because you know in life, whether it's politically or personally, there's plenty of things that happen in the spectrum of things that don't go our way, and we have to find different outlets. For example, the same people that's marching and screaming and getting angry for whatever reason, be it the results of the election. How many of those people go to their county chairman and say, hey, listen, I want to sign up for a voter registration drive. I want to get out there in my community and talk to people. A lot of the times, those are the same people that if you try to organize them, it's very hard, oh, I have things to do and oh, I'm busy and stuff like that. And so you have to look at the movement and look at yourself and say, okay, the events that I'm part of is very negative and destructive at nature, and there's nothing, positive coming out this, because I feel like if your goal is to help Trump or help the Republican Party, then that was totally counterproductive. Totally counterproductive. I mean, it was so counterproductive that, in my estimate, for the next one or two, at least the immediate midterm elections, we're kind of locked out as the Republican Party. At least for the next election cycle, we're locked out. And I feel like that's how much damage has been done. I mean, on to your point, yeah, there will be people that's going to take this event and run with it, but at the end of the day, it's politics, right? There's an old saying, don't let any good crisis go to waste, right? And the enemies or the people who are on the other side of the aisle from the Republican Party, they will use this event. And the thing is,
They will bayonet the wounded for
yeah,
sure. They are
yeah,
that ruthless.
right. Very true. And I think for me, the key is that when we get wounded as a party, we have to ask, is this a wound that came by circumstance, or this is a wound that
That's
came
self-inflicted. Yeah.
right, self-inflicted? And this is totally a self-inflicted wound. I mean, you know, so for me, I feel like number one, this is definitely a moment of self-reflection for the Republican Party. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, what type of voters do we want? What type of people do we want representing us? And is it worth it? Like the level of extremism, is it worth it? I mean, if you're a congressman or assemblyman and you get the votes of extremists, is it worth it? Because you go to their rallies, right? If you're an assemblyman and you go to their rallies, and then after the rally, they end up burning a flag or doing something. Is it worth it? I mean, you know, it comes a point where your politics have to have some morality behind it. I mean, there's always this thing of with politicians, we always don't do what you say, but it comes a point where certain lines that you don't cross, there has to be some morality behind your politics. I mean,
Well,
for example,
Dave, I would say this. This is true, and again, speaking about the breach of the Capitol, unacceptable on
yeah,
every possible level, and everybody needs to be prosecuted, and everybody needs to be held accountable for their own actions. But that would include, in my opinion, if you're talking about morality in politics, I think what we've seen for the past 4 years with the Russia collusion hoax, with all the extra legal attempts that have been made to undermine this presidency, you're looking at that to me is immoral. So if you're going to measure, different, you have measurements of morality. Here again, we're getting back to, and again, right now we're in a very high drama moment. What's going on, I think, is really inflaming, people in so many different ways. But and I agree with you that anybody that engages in that behavior, but let's back up and take a look at what has been moral and what has not.
yeah. I just want everybody to know. I'm just going to point this out as excuse me, for a disclaimer for everybody that's watching. We are both Republicans, and the great thing about this conversation is that we are sharing our points of view, and they don't always align. See, I do believe as Republicans we have to have these conversations, and we don't always have to agree. So yeah, to your point, you can kind of, after you can kind of chime in, but I will definitely have to on that. I will definitely have to disagree with you because I do believe that there's certain things that go along with politics. Like for example, Joe Biden is president, right? Now, as a Republican Party, you would expect that they're going to give Joe Biden hell, right? I mean, politically, I mean, anybody wouldn't want them to so-called. There's this thing where you don't want them to just roll over and die, right? But then there's this other aspect that you understand that we're working for the good of the people. So there has to some issues are universally bipartisan, right? Just for me personally, there's certain things that okay, this is a bipartisan issue, like immigration. I totally believe that should have been passed decades ago. That's a bipartisan issue. Um, and but there's certain things that go along with politics, like when your opposing team becomes president, they're not going to be welcomed with open arms. And to the point of as far as things happening, let's see, as far as the treatment of Donald Trump, I don't think he got any other treatment, um maybe on a higher level, because his entry into office was very controversial. So his presidency is going to be controversial, but I don't think, like, put it this way, every Republican that came in office, whether it was Bush or Reagan or Bush Jr., Democrats have always given them hell. That's part of the politics, and vice versa. So I think we really have to look at what led up to this loss and just be realistic about it. Like, number one, and I told people this all the time, and I think we had a conversation about this. Before COVID, I used to talk to people at my job. And before COVID, they had Democrats that were saying, oh man, I already know Trump is going to win. He unilaterally had the ball in his hands. But COVID, the response of COVID weighed heavily as a decision on people's minds, because
Oh yeah.
when you have hundreds of thousands of people dying, and when I'm talking about on a collective worldwide scale, well, actually worldwide, I think worldwide is 1 million or over 1 million. So when you have a pandemic that's global, and you have people that are losing their mothers, losing their brothers, losing their fathers, you have to walk a tightrope. Yes, we want to see the economy back, but you have to be careful that your perception is not totally business driven to the detriment of the health of the people. Because if the people feel like, wow, you're so concentrated on business that there's no protections in place for my life and my family's life. Now, hold on. I know you're going to say anything, but perception is everything, right? Now, yes, people are responsible for protecting themselves, but people are going to feel like, okay, while I'm protecting myself, there has to be some aid from the government. Now, even though, yes, as Republicans, we do believe in limited government, these are special circumstances. People have lost jobs, people have lost loved ones through no fault of their own. I mean, they were just working one day, and whatever happened over there in China, whether it was through bats or through a laboratory, I'm not going to speculate, it happened. People lost things through no fault of their own. So this is not a situation where people are not taking responsibility for their lives. This is a situation where the rock fell on them, and people weren't happy with the response. So as a result, that weighed on them. And then other situations weighed on them. Because remember, we're still in the midst of this racial reckoning, whether it's Breonna Taylor, whether it's George Floyd. We as a society, people are now more focused on social issues. So you have all of these issues that they're waiting for the leadership to respond to. Like, how do you feel about what's going on? And if the response is not adequate, it can damage your perception, damage your image, and damage any good efforts that you have or that you want to have for the presidency. So all of these factors went into that race being a close call. And that's self-inflicted, you
Yeah,
know.
I've been, I've been concerned, for myself for a long time. I very much, the achievements that have come out of this administration, the good stuff that's come out, the tax reform, the deregulation, the highest level of employment, sentencing reform, school choice, so many, all of these things. I truly wanted a second term to lock all these things in the back of my mind, though, I'm also thinking, as you and I have discussed, so how much of this is tied into one man?
Yeah.
Okay. And what are we going to do when he is now not there? Well, guess what? He's not only not there now, it's the entire thing is blown up, and we have to deal with it.
Right.
And we have to deal with the fallout from that. So my thinking is we still need to cleave to what happened, the amazing stuff that happened in this administration, and how do we take that forward without him? And we've also
Well,
talked about,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
well, it's funny that you said that, because that's the issue that a lot of Republican lawmakers are having, right? Because everybody's running around saying, "Oh, whether you live in New Jersey, even here in Jersey where we live, oh, New Jersey Republicans don't have any spine. Republican Jersey is this, or New Jersey Republicans are this. I mean, New York Republicans or California Republicans." But the truth of the matter is this: the lawmakers, the lawmakers want the base of Trump. They don't necessarily want Trump, because it's no, at this point it's no secret that a lot of the lawmakers do not, Republican lawmakers do not like Trump, right? So, but the issue
The
is that,
establishment has always hated Trump on every
right?
side and on every level.
Well, here's the thing. It can be argued that the establishment doesn't like anything that's handpicked, right? It's not handpicked by them. Okay, granted. But then it comes to a point where if you're going to be a leader, you have to lead. And I think what happened was, just for me, I think what happened was the movement, like you said, was wrapped up in one man. I mean, you have a situation where people are saying, like, for example, like, okay, we're both in the Republican Party, but you'll, even on the internet, you'll have discussions with people, and people will say, "Hey, listen, you're not conservative," and they'll call you out for being a fake Republican or fake conservative. And the issue is, it's not based on any policy; it's based on loyalty to one man. And I've always said that one man can't be bigger than the machine, or the machine can't be one man, because you have these situations. I mean, it's a ticking time bomb. I mean, literally, you have people judging you based on loyalty to one man. Like, for example, up until this point, about a week ago, so people had, especially people in the Republican Party, they had a good viewpoint of Mike Pence. Now all of a sudden he's a traitor. Why is he a traitor? He is because of disloyalty to Trump. That's it. He hasn't broken any conservatism rules, and it's just disloyalty to Trump. So when you talk about dealing with the problem, I think the issue is going forward is, um, you can't have a movement that's attached to one man, and one man becomes a litmus test, because there's an old saying, I think by Abraham Lincoln, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts totally. I mean, and you see the effects of that. So moving forward, there has to be a lot of things that's denounced, and there has to be a lot of things that's changed. Um, for
Without
one,
question, there's
oh, go
also
ahead,
going to
go ahead.
be, in the midst of this, of the reevaluation of everything, because we're going to have to. I mean, we're I'm having an organizational meeting of the Montclair Republican Club on January 21st. The date is not an accident, because it's time at that point to be moving forward. I do think that it's really important to take the good stuff, the stuff that we can learn from, to take forward. One thing, and it goes to what you and I have discussed often about New Jersey and the system and the machine. And that is the Trump's successes happened because he circumvented the machine in 2016. And we've talked about New Jersey. We've talked about how stagnant it is, how powerless we are as Republicans here. And I think that that's a takeaway that we need to have. It's like, and we've already started talking about that, about working within the community and working outside the system to identify the needs of people, to get in and talk about what they need and to develop candidates and develop people around that. I think we can take that as a positive out of this whole conflagration, as we move out of this, is that is, the policies that this administration put in place empowered individuals. They empowered people. And that's what we want to do in New Jersey. The people are quite powerless in multiple communities and have been made that way. But I remember a video that you made during the campaign, last year, talking about politicians being absolutely unresponsive, just basically being parasites on the people forever.
Right.
That you made that video, and then and I'm watching. I'll let you talk in a second. I'm on a roll here, but I'm looking at Billy Prempe's run against Bill Pascrell in NJ9, and that's indicative. And the fact that the man honestly didn't have a chance when he had every policy position. He was the smartest. He was the best. He was the most representative of the people. We have to do an end run in the same way that happened in 2016. Right. Do an end run around the establishment to try to go directly to the people. Go.
Right. Yeah. Nah. I mean, this is the interview, so you could definitely, I
don't mean to monopolize, though.
The viewpoint is always welcome, and I feel like within myself, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say this. And we could get to the NJGOP in a minute. There's a lot of stuff that need to take place. For me personally, going forward, number one, this is just me now. You could disagree with number one. A lot of these events, you always see which pop up, Confederate flags and this, that, and the third. For me, like I said, I'm not speaking for all Black conservatives, but the whole Confederate flag thing needs to die. That's just me, point blank. There's no reason for having it. Our symbol is the American flag. That's the symbol that we operate under.
Absolutely.
This stuff about the Confederate flag and being history, listen, a lot of atrocities have taken place under that Confederate flag.
Absolutely.
You cannot get around it. So anytime you rush to be associated with that, you alienate people, right? You alienate a lot of people, right? You alienate people, and believe it or not only the minority community, studies show that women, Republican Party has had a problem voting wise with suburban women, because in that voting demographic, even though they're not minorities, they want to see the social issues repaired, and people don't want to be associated with that. So number one, the whole Confederate thing needs to die. Number two, there's no doubt about it, and I've said this over and over, the party has a big PR image problem. I mean, we've never worked to clean up that issue of being the party of racism. It's like we kind of accepted it, and to the point where we now have this situation where you do have extremism in the party. Like, for example, everybody may agree with me, but you can ask. Matter of fact, I can go to somebody who's openly racist and ask him, who is he voting for? More than likely, he's going to say Republican. He's not going to say Democrat, because Democrats' message is supposed to be inclusion. And if he's racist, why would he even accept that message? So for me, people may say, oh, well, people can vote for who they want. But the fact that you can vote for who you want, but as a leader, I don't want to make it comfortable for you to feel like you can openly say racist stuff, vote Republican, and feel comfortable like you have allies. So I think the line needs to be drawn in the Republican Party. Like, if you are racist, if you are pushing inflammatory rhetoric, if you are pushing a message of hate, this is not the party for you. That needs to be said. and carry out in practice. Every time we locate somebody that is doing that, they need to be immediately ostracized. Now, obviously, you can't prevent somebody voting who they want to vote, but what it does is it gives you an air of transparency, and it gives you an air of, okay, these people are ready to clean up the act. Because in my travels, I've met a lot of people who they wouldn't mind voting Republican, but it's a lot of those key issues that get in the way. Because I've met many people that say, hey, listen, I'm an independent. And, if the party shows me something, I have no problem. Like, for example, off the community work I've done, I've had a member within my family, say, hey, listen, you made me realize that to some extent that I don't care who you are, Democrat or Republican. If you show you're for the people, I'll vote for you. And this is a person that has probably voted Democrat almost their whole life.
Yeah.
But
So if there's an opening there,
right.
there's an opening there.
So
And this I think is one of the most there's so many, Dave, so many disheartening things that have happened, particularly over the last 2 months. But one of the most disheartening is I have always felt, always in my involvement with it, I got involved in this whole thing because of a congressional race in Paterson, when I saw what the Democrats were doing to the minority community, to the Black and Hispanic community in Paterson. And you see that this is just locked in place like this. One of the most disheartening things is that the Republican Party has done an abysmal job of outreach to the African American community, to the minority communities forever. This administration was the first time in which inroads were actually made, and I think they got 18% of the black male vote. Was for Trump. Then in Georgia, right, that the entire thing, that race was decided because Stacey Abrams got out the vote in Atlanta. So my point being that we've lost it again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were in fact making the sales job was being done, and I think it's been reversed at this point. And right. it has to start again. And to your point, you're absolutely right. There's got to be an overt message that about racism being absolutely unacceptable in the same way as any kind of that there's zero room within the party tent for that.
Yeah,
and
and I know a lot of people may disagree with what we're saying, but the truth of the matter is, I do believe that the party is at a crossroads. At a crossroads. Because let me tell you why. People now have been calling for the third party to rise, right? They want to see a third party. So and there's no guarantees that the Republican Party is always going to be the front party that's going to always face off against Democrats. Because at any time, if any one of those third party platforms, if trillions of dollars pour in and influence pours in, things could change. It could be the Democratic Party versus the Green Party every election. You understand what I'm saying? Or whatever third party, independent party. The thing is, and you do have more people now that are with money that are running independent. And the thing is about it is that we're at a crossroads. We live in a society where people care about social issues. Now, it could be an opportunity for us, or it could be a wasted opportunity for us. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure, you're in the corporate world. You've heard the term. This is a term that they don't really use anymore because it's been taken over by a form of corporatism called social justice corporatism, right? Now, 10 years ago, you had conscious capitalism, right? So you have to ask yourself, what do all these fancy terms mean? It comes from an area where people feel like, hey, corporations don't care about us. They use me, use my body, and abuse me. I don't want to live in a society where I feel like corporations don't care for me. I don't want to live in a society where I feel like politicians don't mind getting over on me. So these terms were invented and became popular because it's the alternative. Like, hey, listen, we have those ethics built into our mission statement, right? Same thing. Um, Same thing with the Republican Party. There has to be some form of new uh, 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 social agenda attached to the Republican Party, whether you like it or not. Where you say, "Hey, listen, we're in the community, but teaching conservative values." Like, for example, me and you had this discussion. Why aren't we in the urban areas? And we spoke about this teaching financial literacy. And because you have, when we spoke about this, you have a lot of poor people that when you approach the issue of financial literacy, they go, well, that sounds good, but I really don't have the money in it. And you've heard the stories of people that started with $500 and now they're millionaires. These things are possible with discipline and consistency.
And empowerment. What we are about is empowerment, the empowerment of the individual. And that's
Right.
like we were saying before, that's key to this whole, process. I think that's politically, the political struggle is a lot about that. It's bringing tools to the people to empower the individual to create a life of their own that's
Right.
enriched and that is self-driven
Right.
and is independent. And that's what, and you, man, you
Yeah.
really brought that home to me about like how the left and the Democrats have an absolute monopoly on,
Right.
they're the umbrella organization
Right.
in underserved communities, and yet the communities continue on this path of dysfunction decade
Well,
after decade after decade, right?
well, I mean, at this point, this is how I feel about it. The reason why I brought up the whole thing about the Republicans have to denounce this and denounce that is because if people have a perception of you, right, that you are racist and that you don't care about the community, you can come into the community and there'll be built-in tension, right? You can feel the tension like, oh shoot, these people are going to give me a hard way to go. And you don't want that. You want to build trust. So the only way you build trust is you have to let people know, hey, there is a movement taking place, this sort of, and I've always advocated for this sort of big tent republicanism, right? Where LGBT people are included, Muslim people are included, minorities are really included. And we can do it, you know, based on conservative values. Like, for example, I do believe in the politics of compassion. I do believe in sort of this conservative compassion, right? A lot of people don't. A lot of people hate that word, but I do because we as the Republican Party, we do need to get together, and we spoke about this clubs. For example, there needs to be an infrastructure in place, especially in Jersey. And I've spoken to some people timeless. Uh, there needs to be an infrastructure in place, especially in the clubs, where we're the first line of defense to the community, right? We should be aiding the community. There's people that you have kids that are going hungry. The only reason that they're not totally starving is because of school lunch, right?
Yeah.
We need to step in. And sometimes, I know we believe that, if you give the man a fish, he does, you got to teach the man to fish. That's true. You do have to teach the man to fish. But sometimes, depending on the situation, you might have to aid the person with the teaching along with it, right? Because if you have a starving kid, it's going to be hard for him to listen to your message if he's starving, right? I mean, food comes first, right? So literally, he's starving. So once he gets that food, then he'll be more okay. Let me hear the message and see how it can apply to me, because
But you got to start with the basics.
right, if you don't have the basics, you have a problem. And there's a lot of these issues that's coming into to society that if we don't deal with as the Republican Party, we're going to be on the outside looking in. Because, these are the issues that's coming to the forefront. Like, for example, climate change, for example, racial issues, like to dismiss those me and you have spoke about it. What do you call it? Oh, during this pandemic, a lot of rich people got richer. I mean, I'm talking about they got buku rich. And because of the pandemic, working people lost their jobs, so they actually slipped down a level into poverty.
Yeah.
This has to be talked about. This has to be addressed. It can't be it can't be yeah, it can't it can't be, oh well, we're the Republican Party and
It
we
can't be
don't have
denied and overlooked.
it can't be, oh, we're the Republican Party and we have no solution for income equality. I can't help you, so if you're dying, you're dying. I mean, and there has to be some, like, put it this way. We have a lot of great conservative minds. You mean to tell me you can't come up with a social justice agenda that's conservative? You mean to tell me you can't come up with a racial reckoning program that's conservative in nature? You can't come up with a compassionate action plan for all of these clubs? I mean, it's so bad, and me and you have talked about this, to where you have clubs right in New Jersey. Now I'm going to bring it to New Jersey. Now you have clubs in New Jersey that they've operated, like you said, for 50 years, 25 years, and they don't even know how to hold voter registration drives. So how are they going to engage in the community? You know what I mean? It takes those things. It takes training. It takes money, which is resources. It takes manpower, and also too, it takes aid from the power structure, so to be, right?
It takes showing up. It takes showing up in the community and being there for the community and supporting the community in meaningful ways, and letting the community know that you are there for them and not ignoring, which is what happens in Montclair all the time in the fourth ward. I mean, we have it's a very funny community because
Right,
it's extremely wealthy on the one side. It's I mean it's so far left. I mean it is it goes even beyond socialism in ideology. But the
right,
wealthy up there in their towers with their Biden Harris things and their Black Lives Matter signs have ignored the fourth ward, utterly. And like we've talked about the what's going on with this, the groups down there that are helping it. They're all government funded. There is an opening for us as Republicans. There's a big opening for us
right,
to go in and to talk about the issues that how we can help people become empowered and to
right.
and to break free of dependency.
And it's basically how we approach things. Like, for example, we could empower single mothers, right? We could have all of these programs say, hey, listen, um, you might have a single mother with 2 kids or 3 kids, whatever case may be. As leaders of the community, we have to go up and say, hey, listen, how can we assist you? Whether it be, we could have different workshops, whether it's, credit repair, um, or even to the point of bringing in people, because I've seen churches do this, like big churches that preach prosperity, preaching the biggest churches, they'll have relationship courses. Now you say, well, what the hell does that got to do with politics? Because this is how it works. If people are not equipped to deal with society, right, they're going to need the help of the government, right? They're going to need assistance. And it's always going to be this battle that, oh, we're going to need a new social government program, right? And if we don't want that, the only alternative is to be active citizens. You control that, because if we have a club with resources and money is coming in, right? And we have Republican nonprofits, we can go to this person and say, hey, how can we assist you? How can we get you on your feet? Because humans operate in different areas of their life, right? So we have to meet people where they're at, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, empower people. We can't shame people anymore because there's a big thing around that, right? With you got single mothers, right? They get shamed a lot. Oh, why are you not married? And it's very hypocritical because the same person that's telling them why you not married, that person's been divorced twice. He's Republican, but he feels morally superior because, oh, I have this ideology that says you should be married. Yeah, but you've been divorced 3 times. So I mean, you have to deal with that issue. So we have to get away from ideology that shames people and more that empowers people. Hey, listen, if you got an issue, how can we solve it? It's the same thing. As the Republican Party, we applaud businesses that are innovative, right? We love businesses that say, hey, listen, there's a problem in the world. How can we put our mind together and collaborate and fix the problems that plague our world? Well, in the Republican Party, we deal with all of these issues, right? We deal with passing laws, edicts, nonprofits, because nonprofits are heavily political no matter what they tell you,
Oh
right?
gosh, yeah.
So we deal with nonprofits. So we deal with all of these entities. So how can all of these Republican entities work for the good of the community? How can they do that? We have to think like that.
Yeah.
There's people that in the minority community, right? And I have cousins and people, they want a comfortable life, right? They
Who
want a
doesn't? Who doesn't want a comfortable life, a life that's moving forward, a life with hope, and a life that's better for the children than it was for them? That's everybody.
right,
The whole human
right,
race wants
right.
that.
I mean, just even to a level where you have people, right, that feel like, for example, going to the whole income equality thing. You have people that feel like the system is rigged against them, right? uh there's always that feel, even in the era of Trump, the system is rigged against them. Even with poor people, you say, oh man, the rich get richer, until they enter our financial literacy courses, right, and literally find out that through hard work and discipline, you
That's
do
right.
like a Roth IRA that you pay up front, and then whatever money you have, you could take it out without any tax incurrence, right? I mean, or you have traditional IRAs, right, that are tax deferred, right? So that means that if you have 25,000 in that IRA, that's $25 that the government can get, right? They have stuff like wills and trusts, right, that you pass down from generation to generation. But a lot of times I use the financial aspect because I am a day trader, a stock trader. I do use the financial aspect, but also too, we can't forget about the social aspect, because people don't want to live in a world where they feel like, hey, the police are not here to protect and serve in my community. Um, People are only out to quote unquote screw you. So that's why we have this whole social justice movement, because it's living in a world that's more compassionate and more connected. You understand? If more than ever before, more than ever before. And as Republicans, we have to realize that the world is changing around us. And I'm not saying that, because a lot of people may take my stuff and say, oh, you trying to go full blown progressive. It's not about going full blown aggressive, but if you study nature, like a lot of people watch the National Geographic channel, right? The mantra of the animals is adapt or die. That's the code that they live by. If you do not adapt, you will die. We don't, and I have great respect for people like the late great Ronald Reagan, or you look at the late great George Bush Sr., right? We live in a different world than them.
Yeah.
These people had an era 40 years ago. Do you realize how much the world has changed in 40 years?
Yeah.
40 years is a long time. The world is not the same. And we have to realize that the world is not the same. And we have to reimagine these terms and these concepts and how we interact with people. Like limited government, right? We spoke about this on the phone. What about effective government, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, because when you say the word limited, right, you think less than. not good. Pulling back. What about effective government? That's what we want as Republicans. We want effective government, right? We want government that works for everybody. And that goes into this big tent republicanism. So this is, for me, I feel like this is a time of soul search.
Reflection, yes. When we
Right,
got to,
right, right.
we're going to have to
Like
move forward in a different
who
way.
who who do we want to be? I mean, do we want to be the same people? I mean, you go through the same issue, the same political issue. Some crazy extremist, right, with a flag, whether it be a racist flag, does something stupid, and now you're dealing with this same PR. It's like, dude, year after year, the same issue. It gets to a point where, when do we put in place an action plan to deal with these issues? And bring it back to Jersey. Let's talk about Jersey, because Jersey is important to us because we live in Jersey. We have the race, the gubernatorial race. We have all these things going on.
Yeah.
But we know that New Jersey is a heavily Democratic state, right? Regardless of the fact that if you look at the statistics, people are moving out of Jersey. The taxes is too high. Sometimes the education is subpar, right? In certain areas. I mean, you're paying all of this money and you're not getting nothing in return. People really feel like that about Jersey. You know, people do move to Jersey from New York, including myself. So you have people coming in, but there's a lot of people going out. There's a lot of people going out because this is not working for me. So how do we create a New Jersey that people want to live?
Well,
That
you made a great point the other day that I'd never really heard articulated. And speaking about the party and the way that how we need to move forward and learn from everything that's happened and take take lessons, good lessons from it, good policy. But you said it also is, we are in New Jersey. We're a very unique place. We're a very dysfunctional place, but we are not like Arizona or Florida or Kansas or any, and the solutions that we need to be looking at coming from a conservative standpoint have got to be, they've got to take into account the nature of our state, its history, its realities, and and how we can change from within. And part of those realities are the political realities and the stranglehold of the public sector unions, the ineffectuality of the GOP organization. We could go on all day.
Right, right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's even in New Jersey. Like I have, believe it or not, I'm of course personal things. I don't like to say any names, but I've had a family member that hit me up in my inbox, right? And this person is Democrat, and they said, "Hey, how do you feel about the Capitol Hill thing?" And I can't defend it. I gotta say, it's wrong. But as a Republican, I hate having those conversations where somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, some extremists in your party did something. That's why I could never vote your party." It disheartens me because we're supposed to be better than that. You know, we if we're supposed to be the party of personal responsibility, right? We
Yes.
can't accept stupid behavior. You can't accept
Good
stupid.
point. Good
So
point.
so that
Good
means that
point.
so so that means that you know if something happens and it's not good, it's better to be transparent and say, "Hey, listen, that wasn't us. I don't know what that is." Now, obviously, it's clear, and a lot of people don't want to accept it. There is a vein of extremism in our party right now that needs to be rooted. And the thing is, we have to ask ourselves, is that extra? Because people love the numbers, right? The manpower, right? But then it gets to a point where you have to ask yourself, is that manpower worth it? Because of what you have to deal with. Like, if I can get 15 people to come to my event, right? Instead of 5, right? Oh, it's great. But the problem is, some of those 15 people are going to be in the minority community, maybe saying derogatory things. So it gets to a point is, do we want a whole glob of people that don't want to be under the big tent, or do we want it to be lean and mean? And for people to say, hey, you know what? This is an alternative. Because, like I said, I've ran into countless people, like even the people I talk to that at this point hate the Republican Party, right? It's more on based on events that have happened. And one thing I've learned that's crazy, and I think you can attest to this. People can say what they want on the internet, right? But when it comes to in person,
Yeah.
doing things in person, it's different when you have to shake my hand in person. Like, for example, there's been I have a lot of progressives that hit my inbox and I speak to, and they'll disrespect a Republican, but they'll say, hey, you know that guy David is cool. And it's not because I'm a rhino or anything like that. It's because of the work I've done. People have hit,
Right. Right.
they've
Right.
ended. But I like the work that you do. I like that you're helping the disadvantaged, because you can't discredit somebody's work that you see.
You
And
bet.
and for example, I'm those same cousins or people that hit my inbox that live in New York that say, oh, I hate the Republican Party. It's one thing to say it on the internet, but there's nothing they can say when they see you helping that 80-year-old woman that nobody wants to help, or helping people get paired up so they can get the correct prescription drug. People have to respect it, you
Yeah.
know. So I've heard somebody say this too. I was on one of the New Jersey Republican websites, and they said we have to become respectable again, right? They say to get respect, you got to give respect, and for all of those people that don't think that this was an important moment on Capitol Hill, they're sorely mistaken. If they don't take it to heart, and when I say take it to heart, I don't mean, oh, we need to do more stuff like that. If we don't take that as, hey, who do we really want to be? Do we want to be active members of the party, people that people are going to respect? Then it's going to be hard, because I've got a lot of respect from independents, but it's based on the work I've done.
Right.
My common sense approach. People like that. People like people, you know, it's the same thing, for example, with rich people, right? You have all these rich people who we know that's part of the public eye, whether it's Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, right? But who do we like more? If you look at public opinion, we like the people more that help people, right? We like the people that says, hey, I'm gonna leave this place better than when I found it, right? Who do people like more? The guy that's hoarding his money, saying, "Hey, I'll do what I want with my." I mean, at the end of the day, people are allowed to do what they want with the money, but on a perception wise, people cling to people that see a world that's bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And I think even in New Jersey, we have to operate on that paradigm where we'll get the respect of, well, not hardcore Democrats, because you have people that's gonna vote Democrat no matter what we do, right?
Of course.
But you do you do have you do have you do have independents, and you do have Democrat lights, right? That are looking at us and saying, hey, I want to be open minded. There's a lot of people that said that, hey, when I go into the voting booth, I want to be open minded. But we have to give them a reason to be open minded. You know, um, you have to give people a reason.
Right. And
Right?
being in the community, being and doing, yes, I mean, like the work that you've been doing in Newark, I mean, like like everything that you've been doing, and bringing that message, it's going to be that kind of work is that's our way forward in New Jersey. Absolutely. With regard to um, ferreting out racism and all these antisocial attitudes and and people and so on. There's, I mean, you could disagree with me if you want. I think that those who are out there with the Confederate flags and who are overtly racist, I think that they are a discredit to the movement. I think the movement that Trump started was about, again, was you had a huge swath of people that felt what? Disempowered. And the message, however it's been distorted or however some people take it, resonated with those people. And I don't think we want to, I think we want to absolutely, bring those people in, small business owners, farmers, laborers, all the people that responded to Trump of every race, of every creed, of every sexual orientation, people responded. And then you have these people, who are basically evil, and who infiltrate. And frankly, Dave, those are the people, anybody that's going to consider storming, the Capitol, trashing buildings. Those people are evil in any community or political movement and need to be excised.
Right. I mean, I think that there are movements that have popped up, right? That people accept the movement. For example, like this whole America First thing, right? I've spoke on America First.
Oh yeah.
And there are some good aspects to America First. Like, people want businesses to honor, sort of like create a social contract with Americans, right? We want our businesses to open factories in America and not China, right? So the people that work can have health insurance, can have a livable wage, right? We want these things, right? But our job now, if you do believe in America First, because when I grew up, I've seen some things that is America First. Like, for example, in my grandmother's generation, you had a couple people that would gift you bonds. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because,
me too.
I mean,
me too.
Right. If you remember that, I'm talking about the older generation, like the baby.
Yes. Yep. Even older, like my grandparents did that, right?
They would gift you bonds, and the reason they would do that, they were giving you not only something of value, they were giving you a piece of America, right?
Right.
If
yes.
if and here, see, now we're back to financial literacy, because if anybody knows this, the difference between a bond and a stock is that if you're a stockholder, you own a piece of the company.
Yep.
If you're a bond holder, you're basically a lender, right?
That's right.
So, and you get interest, right? Like any lender, you send out money and you get interest, right? So they were giving you something of value, because if they gave you this $100 bond and you add to it, well, I think most bonds you get paid, the interest is semi-annually, which ends out to be twice a year. So if you're building something, putting money towards something that's giving you interest, and then on top of that, you're owning a piece of America, right? You have a bond in a municipal bond, right? Whatever.
Treasury.
Right, a treasury bond or whatever. They were giving you a piece of America, and I think that's the appeal for a lot of people. But it can be the appeal for everybody if we handle their needs effectively. So this is what I mean. Let's just bring it to the fourth ward, right? In Montclair, the African American community in Montclair. I do believe deep down they do want America first too. They do want businesses to say, hey, listen, I want to put my business in the fourth ward. I want to make sure people in the underserved communities have health care. They have a good paying job so they can take care of their family. But other people, whether it's LGBT or black people or Muslims, they deal with a social issue where they feel locked out. So we have to deal with that issue of them feeling maybe harassed by the police or locked out. Once we deal with that issue, I do believe all communities want the America First message, right? And we can change the hearts and the minds. Like, for example, like you said, with our grandparents from World War I, that used to gift you bonds. That's a tradition we can bring back. Hey, instead of just presents, why don't I gift my kid a bond? We spoke about this.
Well, and I think even what we did, it's not about financial literacy, but what was your suggestion, and I mean, it was a great thing. It was just interesting that the event that we collaborated on in December, right, the one thing that was that yeah, and it was the work that they do down there is fantastic, but nobody else was doing what you suggested and what we did, which was a book drive and a book giveaway, and a focus on reading information and the magic of all of that. And it was a big hit. I mean, if did you? I mean, you saw people loved it, and they came in and they perused, and it's stuff like that. I mean, for sure. And again, a book is an empowering thing. So right there, we had an
Yeah,
opening that was your thing. You said, I think we should do a book drive, and
yeah.
gee,
I
wow.
right. I believe for 2021, and don't get me wrong, I love the book drive. You
Right.
know,
No, it was a start.
I
It was a
but
start.
it's a start. But I do want to get to more impactful events, like you said,
Yes.
um, whether it be financial literacy or even, life skills, right?
Well, I'll tell you, I told you for my living, I'm a headhunter. So for a while, this was interesting. For many years, I participated in a program through New York Cares, doing helping low level offenders coming out of jail for the first time
Mhm.
with interviewing skills. And it's hard to know. It's hard to quantify how much good I did or didn't do, but it was important that the program was there. De Blasio and the De Blasio administration did away with that. I don't know why, but it's gone. But there's another thing right there where you can combine political activism and community activism, that type of thing. I think it was if I helped one person land a job with that, it was all very much worth it. And and it also does that type of thing. I mean, I would love to do something like that within the
Right.
community. Job skills, job interviewing skills, the whole game of getting a
But
job.
this is the thing that we have to move forward, and this is what people need to see. Like, for example, I think your chairman, Scott Pollard,
Yep.
um, I had a conversation with him, and I'm not going to release too much of a private conversation, but I've ran across people that have told me they've worked in the industry with people that's getting out of jail, getting them access to loans and stuff. This is the big tent republicanism
Yes.
that's gonna draw people to us. Like, people are thinking, hey, he don't care about us. He's Republican. And when you come to him and say, hey, listen, I'm a part of a group that secure loans for people coming out of jail so they can start their own business, so that they can be who they were destined to be, even though they made a mistake.
That's right.
We supposed to believe in second chances. And this is the type of stuff that's going to get you votes, when people know that, hey, listen, that was my cousin that went to jail and he did something about it. You know what I mean? Those are those real one-on-one things that really push the narrative. And I know we went on in this conversation now I didn't even expect it to go on for an hour, but I think that there's even so much to unpack that we're not even finished yet. There's a lot of things that,
Oh, we're gonna be finished for a long
yeah,
time.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't get to say that I feel like if we drag it on, a lot of people are going to miss the core message. But I think the core message is that, and I'm going to sum it up, after Capitol Hill, a lot of people are repulsed by our party. A lot of people are appalled at who we are. And it's easy to play the blame game, right? It's easy to say, oh, it's this person, it's that person, And the funny thing is that in politics, you learn to kick the can down the road or play the blame game. But in your personal life, we have this transparency where we're like, if something goes wrong, I need to look at me first, right?
Yeah.
So I think politically, we need to bring that to the forefront and say, hey, listen, how can we make change? And you'll figure out that you could speak to the most independent, the most hardcore Democrat, and you'll find out that really, hold on, oh, sorry. Yeah, really, all they want is community leaders and politicians that's actually going to try to help. And the funny thing is that a lot of the times, a lot of problems can't be solved right away. So it takes sometimes more than one generation to solve a problem. But just the mere fact of you actively engage in the fight for a better world, people will say, you know what? Let me take a second look at the Montclair Republican Club, right? Let me take a second look at the Young Trenton Republic. Oh, not Trenton. It wouldn't be Trenton. It'd be Mercer County, right?
I think your sound is starting to go a little bit, at least on this side. I'm having a hard time hearing you there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I am. I think my sometimes my Wi-Fi connection is not too good. But basically, I'm gonna sum it up because probably my Wi-Fi is acting up. We want people to say, hey, let me take a second look at Mercer County, right? Let me take a second look at Atlantic County Republicans. Let me take a second look. But we have to create that umbrella so people feel comfortable coming in. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes.
I mean, if you have a group of people, like anytime you have an ideology that discourages groups of people, you're already alienating people. So you're already starting at a disadvantage. So I think it's time that we have a reckoning where we say, hey, listen, what you saw on Capitol Hill, that's not the best of who we are or who we
Right.
can be. And we're going to move forward from this in a
Right.
positive way.
Yes.
And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I'm just going to sum it up with this. I remember one time I read an article, and it was like more of a psych article for psychologists. And it said that for every one bad action in the eyes of people, you have to do 7 good actions to make up for it.
Huh.
So what that tells me is that we got to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And not hit the ground running for politics, but hit the ground running for people.
And let the politics take care of themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, the politics will follow, and political success will follow if you're doing the
yeah,
right thing.
right. So, I mean, I know a lot of people I don't know, people may criticize me, you know, uh, for speaking out, but I feel like it needs to be said because if I'm a part of this organization or this political group and I care about it, if you care about anything, you wanted to see it get better, right? I don't want, I'm sorry, I don't want a party where my conservatism is tied to if I'm going to be loyal to one guy. To me, that's not true conservatism.
And you don't have to apologize for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a healthy situation either. But
And
I think we need to again look at it from a few sides and take the good stuff and the good people and move on.
yeah, so I think it's been a very eye-opening interview.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. It was a pleasure. It was a
Yeah,
real pleasure. Always.
just hope. I just hope that my thing is that we wake people up
Yes.
that if you are going to be a part of this party, you take a more common sense approach. If you are going to be in this party, you take a more big tent approach, a more people focused approach, and you can't be ashamed to recognize the need for change.
Right.
You can't be afraid to say, "Hey, listen, maybe we went down a rat hole that we shouldn't have went down," because people respect people that are open, honest, and transparent, right? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, listen, maybe we drunk the Kool-Aid and we went down a rabbit hole that we shouldn't have. And all we can do is keep working and let our work speak for itself. So it's definitely been a
Nothing
good,
else you can do.
yeah.
And time will tell.
So I hope that people take our different points of views and take it all together, and it kind of jar them and kind of leads them in a new direction going forward.
That's what it's about.
It's definitely been a good pleasure working with you, and I hope people take this interview the right way and don't misinterpret this conversation for what it's supposed to be. So
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed.
so
Agreed.
Well, for the people that don't know, we'll definitely be working together. We got a lot of things coming up in the city
Yes.
of Montclair. I'm still doing my urban tour. I took a break for the holidays so people could be with their families. Um, but there's a lot to unpack, and we'll do it on the next interview.
You
So,
bet. Thank
uh,
you, Dave. Thanks a
all
million.
right.
Okay.